Hey Birdland, Melanie Newman with you here, enjoying our 2022 off season, but that also means we got to gear up and get ready for 2023, which is including some of the most collective, biggest changes in the game that we have seen in quite some time, with some new rules that are coming our way. If you missed it over the season, of course, it was announced the bases are going to be bigger. The shift is essentially going to be banned, and there's a new pitch clock coming your way as well. Now, I think it's important to also distinguish here. We've heard a lot of talk about they want to speed up the game. They want to cut down the time of the game. There is a little piece, though, to dig into that, which is the fact that what they want to see is more action during the game. We've seen some pretty exciting games that have gone a long time, well past last call. Extra innings can really lock you in if there is action going on. So while, yes, the ultimate goal is the fact that those minutes are going to be cut down, you're looking at an average of 2.5 hours maybe in these games instead of 3.5, 4 hours. Ultimately, what it is where you have an average time of 4 minutes between seeing actual action taking place in a game. That's going to be picked up significantly here. Now, these rules weren't just born overnight. They didn't come up with a concept and then decide to throw it in the major leagues. So that's what I want to take a look at with you here and see ultimately how this foundation was laid for these new rule changes to happen. And it starts first and foremost with bringing in new innovative people who understand the game, the practicality of the way that it operates, but also the analytics and the human side. That's where you've seen hirings like Theo Epstein, the former general manager, joining the commissioner's office. And it was he who's coming up with a lot of these rules, including what we saw earlier this year in the Atlantic League of moving the actual pitcher's mound forward. Now, not all of those, including moving the mound forward, ultimately make it into a realm of existence. But some, again, like the pitch clock, are going to be coming your way. We have to go all the way back to 2015, 2016 season, where we first ultimately saw this. Now, for me, I was one of the guinea pig operators at the time of this new system, working as a part of Major League Baseball's advanced media program. Now, this was the pitch clock operator. We did a few other things as well, but this was the biggest one at the time. Now, you all saw Heston Kjerstad and his dazzling display at the Arizona Fall League this year. The players at this point in time who were ultimately being tested with these rules were some former and current Orioles you might be aware of: Austin Wynns, Tanner Scott, DJ Stewart, Chance Sisco, just to name a few of them. And they all got to see how this played out ultimately in a setting that was always designed to be experimental, starting with the fact that you were taking the best talent from all 30 teams' minor league programs and seeing how they do against each other, a snapshot of the future, if you will. So while they were ultimately trying to play around with this rule then, the timings have been changed, yes. We actually had to sit back in the booth and record the average amount of time that was going on in between pitches if those pitch clock violations were actually being upheld, and add that all up at the end of the day, in addition to turning on and off the clock as well. So as they started to see that this actually could do something, of course, the first that was initiated was the timing in between each inning, making sure that you're really just leaving room for the commercial breaks, but ultimately players are hustling on and off the field and getting ready. Of course, the exception to that, which you may not know, is if the catcher was on deck or was the last at bat, you give it a little extra because he's got to have time ultimately to get his gear back on and reset. You also give it a little extra time if they're opting to go to the bullpen, so the clock won't start until the new pitcher has actually crossed the lines and is entering the field of play, at which place, yes, you do have to hustle a little bit as well. So they decided this could be something and decided to move it into the minor leagues this year. And again, what we saw was the fact that some minor league games had more hits and a bigger run differential. We're talking a 12-4 AAA game with 24 hits that was still played in just over 2.5 hours. So you're going to see that come into play this year as well. For the pitcher, he's got 20 seconds if somebody is on the base paths. It needs 15 seconds if there's nobody on the base paths. For the hitter, he has to be ready, locked in, when there's 8 seconds left. Otherwise, it can be called an automatic strike. For the pitcher, if he's not set in his movements and ready to deliver the pitch by the time that clock hits 0, it's an automatic ball. And you can see the way that this is going to move the game a little more forward. It's going to eliminate some of those more OCD tendencies, stepping out, resetting, tapping their bat 3 different times, making sure they readjust their glove straps, but ultimately encouraging more action to happen in the game. Now, of course, I don't know how this is going to turn out any much as you do, but it's going to be an interesting one for sure.